Hey there, I'm Jyll Saskin Gales, a Google Ads coach and the founder of the Inside Google Ads course, podcast, and book. And I'm here with Tomasz Abbott-Wieczorek. He is a top PPC freelancer and the founder of the PPC Profit Club. And we are here to talk about all things Google Ads, starting a business, really whatever interests you. So Tom, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks, Jyll. It's really cool to get a conversation in. I feel like a lot of people talk about these sort of conversations, podcasts happening. You have to schedule them so far out, right? Like we're all so busy. So yeah, it's really cool to actually, when we suggested it the other day, you just said, hey, let's just put it in the calendar, which I absolutely love. It's just like straight, get to the point and just record it and get it done.
Yeah, let's just do it. And for those, we just met 2 days ago. I mean, we know each other from LinkedIn and online spaces, but we hopped on a call 2 days ago. We had a chat and we were just like, yeah, let's just do this. Let's have a conversation, a real authentic conversation about what's going on in our industry and some of kind of the questions and comments we're seeing a lot from you.
Yeah, I always thought it would be cool. I know I love watching these sort of raw, unedited, authentic conversations on YouTube. Like I know, for example, like Chase Diamond, he's an email marketer.
Yeah.
He does a similar kind of thing every week with I think it's just his friend. And they just shoot the whatever,
shoot
right?
The
like,
poop.
yeah. I'll try and not make you have to edit this. So yeah, they shoot the whatever every week and just chat about things. And it's kind of like you just go to the coffee shop with your friends and, I want people to get in on that conversation because I think those are the most interesting conversations, right?
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. Google Ads. Isn't it a truism that the only constant is change in Google Ads? A lot of things that have been changing recently. I know the one that's really been surprising a lot of my clients, especially the ones who aren't Google Ads specialists. They're, business owners where Google Ads is one thing they do, or marketers where just Google Ads is one thing they do, is all the changes around match types and how broad everything has gotten and how search terms have gotten really broad, really takes them by surprise, makes me look like a wizard when I show them, there's a search terms report and it shows nothing to do with your keywords. But that's definitely one of the biggest changes I've seen this year. I'm curious, if you've seen something similar or what some of the big changes you're seeing in Google Ads this year.
Yeah, for sure. I get asked about broad match basically every day, to be honest. I just thought about this sunset video I generated with AI a couple of months ago, sort of like a joke I posted on LinkedIn of like a person on a bike with exact match written on their backpack sailing into the sunset because Google loves to sunset everything all the time. Yeah. So yeah, I think sort of played around with a bit of a joke with exact match going away, but I think in practice, exact match has pretty much gone away. It's just there in name right now. It's become, way looser match type. The same with phrase. And I think what we're going to see, if I had to make a prediction, was broad match is going to get more of the AI stuff, more of the smart stuff, and exact and phrase are just going to be sort of left to the side, I feel like. What do you think?
I mean, it already does, right? Google tells us that broad match takes all these other signals into account that phrase and exact don't. It's funny, when I left Google in 2021 and started creating content, I would always advise, when you're getting started, phrase match is your Goldilocks solution, right? Just start with phrase and then you can either tighten to exact, match broad. And now I actually feel the opposite. I think phrase match has no purpose. It's like either go broad and take advantage of all of that, or go exact, which is exact as you can be. But sort of, Goldilocks is now no place for it. So, especially again with the small business owners I see, there is a place for exact match. It can work, but I actually find the bid strategy to be so important to making exact match work. Like when I see people using exact match keywords in manual CPC bidding, they get a whole bunch of unrelated crap and their other search terms blossoms to like 80% of their spend. And so I've found, even though exact match doesn't have a special relationship with smart bidding like broad match does, that using smart bidding with exact match helps to rein in a lot of those irrelevant matches, which, shocker, are cheaper than the more relevant ones. So that's something I've sort of been changing my perspective on recently. And wrapping my head around how to best use exact match where it still has a place. But, broad match is end game. At some point, that's going to be all that's left. That's like automation is end game. Performance max is end game. You may not be ready to use those now, But if you can use those well, you are way better set up for the future than other advertisers who aren't even testing them yet.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I totally agree with the setup with exact and broad now. That's pretty much what I recommend. It's what I use in most of my accounts for my clients. It's what I recommend to other PPCs as well, is you're just kind of overcomplicating yourself for yourself. If you're using phrase as well, you don't really need to use. And the other thing that is just so annoying to see still, which you might see, is people splitting out match type by campaign. Again, it's just like, so what I mean is having an exact match campaign, a phrase match campaign, a broad match campaign. You're just splitting budgets. You're just like, Google's not going to be able to then move around that budget. Then you have to check it in on it every day. And then you're going to have budget problems. You're going to have underspend. You're going to have, it going to the wrong keywords. Like, it's just making it so complicated for yourself when it really doesn't need to be. So actually, in that way, I think if I could take a positive out of it, seeing as everyone's so negative about broad match a lot of the time, like I say, a positive, I think it kind of simplifies account structure sometimes. And it's a very clear change, right, from the old account structure from years ago, which some people unfortunately still use. But
I mean, it's how they were taught, right? Like, people were taught that single keyword ad groups are the way to go because they were the way to go. But you don't want to be that frog sitting in the pot of water, not noticing you're about to get boiled. We need to adapt. Right. And adapting, I think I've seen you say this on LinkedIn as well. I absolutely did not come up with this idea, but as much as Google Ads keeps changing and new features and PMAX, blah, 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 like, the foundations haven't changed. It's still ad rank. It's still understanding your user. It's still crafting a compelling ad. Like, the building blocks for success in Google Ads are remarkably unchanged from when I started working in AdWords a decade ago. It's just the tools at our disposal and the way we spend our time using them has really changed. But I'm curious,
sure.
I don't actively manage accounts anymore. I coach and advise and teach. So I see a lot of accounts, but I'm not responsible for them at the end of the day. But I know that you are a freelancer, you are still managing accounts, and you have a lot of freelancers in your PPC Profit Club. So I'm curious your perspective on, how the role of the freelancer has changed.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that have happened in 2024. You mentioned there about ad rank, which I absolutely love. This is probably my favorite change that Google did with leveling the playing field between standard shopping and PMAX, because this is a question I got a lot. And actually, something that was maybe missed in that announcement, everyone was like, how does it impact my accounts? Of course, right? That's what you're going to think naturally. Actually, what I thought was, hey, okay, probably in practice, this isn't going to change that much, because typically for me, I always use, every time I have PMAX, 90% of the time, I'll have a standard shopping campaign as a backup, right? If PMAX stops spending, if it decides to throw his toys out the pram one day, as we know it does sometimes, right? I always have standard shopping there. So for me, it wouldn't make too much of a difference. For a lot of the PPCs I help, it actually kind of clarified things for them, right? It was really good to get that from Google, kind of shock announcement out of nowhere. But the other thing that it did was bring up, as you said, the foundations right to the surface again, because I think there's a lot of people that have come into the industry, into Google Ads from Meta Ads, from other platforms that are maybe not as technical to manage. They've come in with a creative background and they haven't paid too much attention to the foundations, to the technical stuff, to the auction system, the very core of Google Ads, right? And it's so good to see Google talking about ad rank and quality store again, because I don't know about you, but I literally haven't heard anyone mention ad rank in the last couple of years whatsoever, right?
I've heard people denigrate it. People say quality score doesn't matter. It's just a diagnostic tool. Don't pay attention to it. And I'm just, it's interesting though, you're mentioning people coming into practicing Google Ads who have kind of the creative skills and not as much the technical skills. And that's something so interesting to me, because as Google Ads practitioners, that's the skill we lack as an industry. Like, I'm not saying everyone does, but most of us, we don't spend our time on really great ad text or really great imagery or video, right? None of us have those skills really yet. We're really good at like the targeting and the keywords. And but going forward, when bidding is automated, when targeting is more and more automated, creative is that last frontier where I don't believe AI is there yet or is going to be there in working on its own doing that. And so we need those creative skills. So like, I'm excited at the cross-pollination. I love in my Inside Google Ads course when I get meta ads practitioners coming in or SEO practitioners coming in, right? They bring this whole other perspective. And it's something that myself and many people I work with, like, we need to build those creative skills, because I only see that becoming more important in the platform going forward.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I said 70% of Google Ads was going to be creative, led. Maybe 1 or 2 years ago. I think it was one of my first like controversial posts on LinkedIn that got
unpopular opinion.
Exactly. Yeah. Being polarizing. So I didn't think it was very polarizing at the time. It was just a trend that I saw, and I decided to lean into it. And, I'm a big fan of playing to your strengths. That's why I always tell other PPCs is play to your strengths. And I think we have this misconception as an industry that we have to be everything to everyone, and we have to be amazing at creative, technical, conversion tracking, web landing pages, design, like keywords, tracking, all these different things. Like, we have so many different jobs, right? And you need to realize that naturally you're going to be better at some than others, right? And I always say play to your strengths. Like, you don't have to do everything. And I think because a lot of PPCs come from an agency background, they're used to working across loads of clients and doing everything. So naturally, when you go freelance, a lot of people, when they make that transition to freelance or to working in-house, they still feel like they need to do everything, when actually you don't. And that's been one of the core things for me this year, is realizing, like, I can't do everything. I'm not that great at everything. And I'm better off actually forming a team, right? With people that sort of fill in my blanks, that are strong in areas where I'm not so strong, right? Collaboration's been something that I've really been quite stubborn with, to be honest, as far as working with other PPCs and accounts over the years. And I wish I wasn't, right? Like, I've really ventured into that, tried that out a little bit this year, and something that I absolutely love. And I feel like that's a lot of what you're doing, right? With your coaching and the one-to-one sessions.
Absolutely. And it's something I've noticed in my own business as well. When I started as a content creator, still wrap my head around that term, in 2021, I had 5 topics I talked about. Google Ads, Google Analytics, this was UA, free Google tools, content marketing, and starting a business. And I would always make sure I was talking about all of those things. And it was this struggle I had a lot in 2022 and 2023 of like, how much do I want to go all in on Google Ads, which feels comfortable to me, but also risky, versus ensuring I'm diversified. And it actually wasn't until I came back from maternity leave this year, after my second was born, that I said, you know what? Like, F it. I'm a Google Ads expert. I own that title. I don't want to become a GA4 expert, and I'm not. Let's throw that away. And then with the starting a business in content marketing, if people come to me and ask me to coach them on that, which they do, absolutely, I will share what I know and what has worked for me. But in terms of my content and my platform and what I want to be known for, it is Google Ads expertise, and sort of giving myself permission to not try to diversify and do all these other things and go all in has been really great for my content. It's been really great for my business and bottom line, which matters more than the content. And it's also been really good for me. So to your point, I have like a network of people. One of my clients, has a merchant center issue, has a tracking issue, I have people I can refer to. Sometimes I ask to shadow those calls just so I can learn as well. But it's felt really good to just go all in on the one thing I love, because I truly do love Google Ads. Like, it's not just a job to me. I like geek out over it way too hard. So yeah, I've found that really freeing and empowering. And I wish I had felt more comfortable doing that sooner.
Right. So I love Google Ads as well. But if you were to start from day one again and, have to pick a career again, what would you pick?
Oh, assuming we're still in like the marketing space.
You can be, you cannot be. You.
Hey, if I could really start a career all over again, what would I do? I don't know. I guess this is a space I know. I ended up working at Google by accident. I ended up starting a business by accident. None of this was planned. But I think looking at this broader space we're in, where do I really see opportunity? It is more in that technical expertise. Finding someone who can identify and solve a merchant center issue is so hard. Like I used to have someone, they're not available now. I have been messaging a lot of other experts and names you'd recognize from LinkedIn. Nobody has someone, you know what I mean? I have a few now go to GA4 conversion tracking experts, and like I refer people to them every single week. So that's something, because I do Google ads, you know, I think there's still opportunity there, of course. But if I were like starting over right now and picking, I think I would choose to be a Google Analytics 4 expert, or a Google Merchant Center expert, or a like, I guess, Google Tag Manager expert, you know, consent mode, offline conversion tracking, all that stuff, because they aren't seen as sexy, you know, but so in demand, and they support not just Google ads, but all forms of marketing. So yeah. What about you? You could start it all over again. What career would you choose?
Interesting one. I think we're going down the same path here. I would say if I was optimizing for money, 100% I would just do conversion tracking. I would just become super advanced in every single setup, because again, for me, similar to you, I have a bunch of people now, a really trusted, great network that I've built, especially over the last year, really built up.
Do you have a merchant center person? Sorry, do you have a merchant center person?
Yeah. We can talk.
Okay, we got to talk. Sorry.
Yeah. So pretty much each person in that sort of group of conversion tracking experts that I have is dedicated to a different platform, right? So this is what I found specifically with very technical people, was they really knew a platform really well, and then other platforms they weren't so comfortable with. So actually finding someone per platform is a really great approach that I found works. So I have one for ClickFunnels, I have one for Shopify sites, I have one for WordPress sites, like different setups, HubSpot guy, for example, as well. So yeah, if I was optimizing for money and I was starting all over again, I would literally just do conversion tracking, because I think it's a big opportunity. You can charge, I would say, pretty much wherever you want, because there's nobody else doing it pretty much, right? And as you said, it's really hard to find people that are really good at it, reliable, that combination, right, of being reliable, being available, being really great at having a great setup. If I was optimizing for money, some sort of tracking expert. If I was optimizing for like fun or like something I wanted to do, probably be SEO, to be honest.
Really? Okay, tell me more about that.
So I actually kind of started in SEO. So when I did my, basically when I started my career, it was like 8-9 years ago now. I basically A/B tested university and an apprenticeship, which is like a trainee working type of thing, right? So like a true PPCer, I basically A/B tested those, because the people talking about university said, hey, go to uni, apprenticeship's rubbish, vice versa. And I didn't believe either of them. So I said, hey, let me do both, and then I can make an informed decision, right, with all the data. So I did both. And when I did my apprenticeship, I worked in an agency. It was a really great agency, really, really great team. And I basically did about 50% PPC and 50% SEO. So I did a lot of content stuff, links, blog writing, briefs, working with influencers, all that stuff. And I just really enjoyed it, to be honest. And I have a lot of SEO friends now, and I know, at least in the UK market, SEO salaries can be as much as like double a PPC salary in 9-to-5 jobs. Yeah. So I would definitely say that would come into it for sure. Like SEO is, I think, something that you can make more money in, and I think is in a way easier, in a way harder. I would say in a way easier, because you're not so reliant on the numbers day to day, right? You have longer to prove yourself, to prove results, right? But then on the other hand, harder, because there's so many different, parts of it, right? But yeah, I think it's like just a different approach, because then you wouldn't be, so defined by the numbers that you get every month, which I know can be really stressful for some PPCs, right? Especially if you're working on big accounts and like your fate rests in the hands of like the CPC you get that month, right?
I guess that's why SEO feels so like amorphous and challenging to me. I've really been working this year on my SEO and DIYing my SEO, and it's been going really well, but like I'm still such a noob. And I do find it so frustrating that like, it doesn't make sense to check my search console even once a week. Like, what am I going to find? I feel like I have so much more control in Google Ads, obviously, because I'm, more comfortable there. But one of my predictions for where this is all going with AI and everything is like SEO and PPC really are converging. and that a lot of the best practices that underline them are becoming more and more similar. So I do think there's real power in being an SEO and a PPC together. And I've definitely this year especially seen a lot more freelancers and actually agencies who specialize in like website development and SEO, you know, joining my course, hiring me for coaching because they have been outsourcing Google Ads management to someone else, and they just see how important it is to bring that in-house to be able to manage it more holistically. So it's a trend I'm seeing for sure, and one that makes a lot of sense. And so that also is part of the motivation. Like, I'm not trying to become an SEO expert or ever offer SEO advice, but at least me working on it myself helps give me a vocabulary and an understanding and a bit more ability to empathize when I'm meeting with clients who are SEO experts trying to learn Google Ads with me.
Right. Yeah, that's how I've always approached other platforms as well, because I always stick to Google. Like, I've never ventured into Snapchat, Pinterest, Meta, all these other platforms, but I always try to have a surface level understanding. I think that's a really great way to go, because then you can have those conversations, right? You can have a surface level understanding, but you don't need to be an expert in it.
Absolutely. I used to be like Meta ad certified, LinkedIn ad certified, Amazon ad certified for the same reason. I was like, let me just learn, you know, what's same and what's different. The Meta one was also really helpful because so much of the language is like similar but means slightly different things. But yeah, I'm glad to be focusing on Google Ads alone going forward. You know, one thing I wanted to talk about with you today is both of us are on these sort of, you know, top PPC influencer lists and putting out a lot of content. And it's really interesting because it's a whole different specialty and expertise area than what we do, which is Google Ads. And so I'm curious how you got started in that side of things and building out like the business of Tom, in addition to the business of being, you know, a Google Ads freelancer.
Right. Yeah. So I mentioned I started with doing A/B testing, university, and an apprenticeship. And I worked in an agency, which was a great agency. I just like used to go on my lunch break and sit in my car and just think like, is this it? Right. Like, I knew the 40-hour work week in an office was just not for me. I really loved the work. I just didn't love the format of it. Right. So then I decided, hey, let's write a dream list of like 3 brands that I want to work for. Because I thought, hey, if I actually work at the company, because I'm a product guy as well. Like, I love products, right? I'm really into like my tech, my cars, like I'm really into the products, right? So I really wanted to work at some of my dream companies. And I ended up getting gigs with 2 of them. The third one became a bit too big and corporate for my style in the end. But yeah, I ended up getting gigs at 2 of them, and it was super cool. Like, I got to manage millions of dollars of ad spend per month. It was super, super cool to get really deep into the product. And like a lot of things we've just mentioned, I think working in-house is really cool because you have that time to really put into like the landing pages, work with the SEO team, work with the meta team, like, yeah, create that cross-team collaboration, which is so important and can really get you some serious gains in Google Ads for sure. So the thing is, I always felt still like a small cog in like a big machine when I was working at these companies. And I felt like, you know, my time was limited when I left, whenever that may be. It's inevitable. You know, what would I have, right? Like, what's next? So that's when I decided to start building my personal brand and said, hey, you know, this is something that I can own. That's going to be mine. And I also had the issue where I worked with all these amazing brands, but I didn't know anybody. No one really knew who I was. I really like this quote where it's like, it's not who you can see, it's who can see you.
Yeah.
It's like from the WeWork show called We Crashed. It's about the rise and fall of WeWork. I don't know who actually said it, but it's in the show.
Some scriptwriter somewhere.
Yeah, but We Crashed is a great show if anyone's listening and hasn't seen it. So yeah, after starting to build my personal brand, I realized that I wasn't the only one that felt like that. I met so many other people that were like that. And then over time, yeah, just got more into my freelancing, started being asked to do some coaching. And then it sort of went from there, basically. I never really set out to do coaching or courses or community or anything like that. It was pretty much just people asking me so much, and I didn't really know what to say for a while. So
the answer is yes.
Exactly. So I thought, hey, let me try this out a little bit. And yeah, for the moment, it's, you know, half and half probably between managing accounts and, you know, helping other PPCs grow with their freelancing, with their LinkedIn, with their Google ads. So, you know, it's a hybrid at the moment, and it'll be like that for the foreseeable, really. But yeah, that's how I got into coaching, got into the personal brand. But you're totally right. Like, it's a completely different skill set that Google Ads just does not prepare you for, right? Like, what was the part where you were like, damn, like, I don't know where to start in all of this?
What was the part where I didn't know where to start and thought I was,
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting.
Or it, like,
my
caught you off
path
guard.
into it was different than yours, but then at the end,
Mhm.
exactly the same. So like I worked at Google. It was mid-pandemic. I was working from home. I didn't see another role at Google I wanted. And this was hard. Like, I was making really good money, like $300,000 a year working at Google. Like, it was great. But working from home, you know, I didn't have the perks. My friends weren't around. And there was a startup I'd been consulting with through Google for Startups. And they were like, oh, want to come be our CMO? We'll match your salary. With hindsight, red flag. But at the time, I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I worked there for 2 weeks. It didn't work out. And then I just found myself like, frick, I'm unemployed. I'm too embarrassed to even attempt to go back to Google. I did leave for a reason. What am I going to do? And I started posting TikTok videos out of boredom, and then was fortunate that that took off. And I was like, oh gosh, I guess I'm doing this now. And then but I started, you know, managing ad accounts because I knew immediately monetizable skill. I matched my Google salary within 6 months, but was so burnt out. And I knew, like, I don't want to manage ad accounts. It's not, I'm really good at teaching. And so one of my clients who I did an audit for asked me, do you do coaching? And I've learned the answer to that is always yes. Just say yes, and then you can figure it out. And so I started getting into coaching and loved it and built up the coaching. So after I'd been in business for a year, I, you know, offboarded all my management clients to just do coaching. And then same with the course, people were asking me to launch a course. And I said, well, Skillshop exists. Why would I launch a course? And then I went to do Skillshop and I thought, aha, there's room for a Google Ads course here. And that's how that launched. And so that's where a lot of things have really come about for me is I've been fortunate to build an audience. And I mean, growing an audience on TikTok in 2021, very different than trying to do it today. But I was fortunate to grow an audience there, and they told me what they wanted and I gave it to them. And some of them were willing to pay me for it. And that's how it all snowballed. And so it wasn't really till I'd been running my own business for 8 to 12 months that I sort of admitted to myself, like, oh, I'm not job searching. Like, this is my job now, Jyll Inc. And now I can be more strategic about this and where do I want this to go? And so now I actually just went through it now for 2025. But my assistant really helps me with that. And like, what are all the things I want to achieve next year? What's going to be Q1 versus Q2 versus Q3? And what are the priorities? And it helps set goals from like a content and influence perspective, but always tied back to what's the money here and what's the opportunity. And so that's how I've really been ruthless in cutting certain things. Like I used to have free ebooks, gone. But then also all in, like when I decided to launch a podcast, it was just like a 1 week frenzy and boom, I launched a podcast, you know? And it's great to have the freedom to do that when you run your own business.
That's so interesting. That's something I was really interested to ask you about, actually.
Yeah.
Was I saw you post, I don't know when it was, about raising the price of your course from, I think it was $29 a month to $49 a month, right?
Yeah. So I launched my Inside Google Ads course. I remember it was 2/2/22, February 2nd, 2022. I was like, it's a cool date. I have to use it at $29 a month or $290 a year. So you get 2 months free. And by September, I had 100 people join. And I was like, good proof of concept, raising the price. And then when I raised the price, it sold so much better. And, you know, the $29 a month price point, I set it there because I didn't feel confident that people would want to pay me every month for my expertise, which feels so silly now. But at the time, that's how I felt. But now looking back, when people saw $29 a month, and really you're one of the top Google Ads experts, there just wasn't alignment. And $49 a month or $490 a year, much more clear alignment. Someone who tells me now, oh, I can't afford it. It's not like they would have been able to afford $29 a month either, you know? Yeah. And I'm actually planning a price increase. It's on the business plan for 2025. I'm going to be going to $79 a month or $790 a year in March is when that's planned. This is the first time I'm sharing that, actually. People, like, I still have people who pay $29 a month. They can pay that price as long as they're active, and anyone who buys at $49 can keep that. But even now versus September, so it was more than 2 years ago, the value in the course is so much bigger now than it was there. And again, like I can see the people who are buying at 49, like they could also afford 79 a month. So I am excited for that. Again, always a little bit nervous, like, oh, is that going to be a step too far? But I just think looking at, what else is in the space, looking at what I offer, I think the value is more than there. So I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Good. I mean, good stuff. Like that's cool to hear that you had like a positive experience raising the price, right? Because I think a lot of people, when they see price rises, they think, hey, this person just wants to make more money, right? Or, whether that's like we have like a chocolate called a Freddo in the shop.
Okay.
I don't know if you have the say, it's like a Cadbury's little chocolate. And it went from,
10p
10p to 20p and everyone's saying, oh my God, inflation, right? Like,
I mean, that's 100% jump. That is big.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I think what people don't see from the outside is that alignment. Like the alignment is completely like you're so spot on there. And it's about like, making sure it aligns with what your audience wants, but also, what they're expecting to pay. As you said, like if you found, the best painter in your city and he said, hey, like I'm going to do everything for like $100, you'd be like, hold on a minute. Like that's a little weird, right? Like, so yeah, it's like testing different. I think it's all an experiment, right? For me, pricing is like the most fascinating part probably of like products. Even like I've done a lot of D2C products with Google Ads and we play around with pricing all the time, how to communicate that pricing, right? It's not just about, that's what I'm trying to say. It's not just about making money. It's a lot of the time, it's not anything to do really with revenue. It's more about how to communicate that price. And then, as you said, how people then digest that price, right? So, okay, how much return on investment do they get, right? Whatever they pay per month, what's the multiplier do they get from that, right? How does it fit into their tool stack? Like, what do they use it with? Do they use it every day? Do they use it once a month? Like, working out all those things, I think is so fascinating. And as you said, like I had the same experience when I did my power hour originally, similar to you, one-to-one coaching, priced at £99. I had the same. I had a lot of bookings from like previous people who agreed to it. But then after the first like 14 or 20 I got, it was sort of a bit of a quiet period, right? Where I think I had a lot of people actually saying to me, hey, like, this is, is this what you're offering? Like, you're doing an audit and you're 1 hour of your time and like, you're the best guy and everything. And, it's 99.
I'm like 99 pounds. Yeah, that's inexpensive, but you were just getting started, right? You were figuring it out.
For sure. Exactly. And I think the thing for me, I don't know if you found the same, is people from different countries vastly have a different perspective, right? Obviously they have different income. They have completely different perspective on things. My experience was like people from the UK thought that was kind of expensive. And then I had a lot of people from the US, Canada, and elsewhere that would come and say, hey, like this is crazy cheap. So that was a little bit confusing. And that's probably something people don't see from the outside, is to say, hey, you just want to price your product like for what you want to sell. Actually, no, it's like balancing all these different things.
So many different things. It's true. Like when I first started coaching, because I actually had a whole different business before this. I did MBA admissions consulting. So people who were applying to business schools, I'd help with, and that was just a side business I ran while I worked at Google, before I worked at Google, and I was at Viacom. So I had a bit of that experience. And when I started that business, I started at $150 an hour. And by the time I finished that business, it was $300 an hour, which was still cheaper than a lot of other people out there. So I had that coming into this business. So when I first launched coaching, it was $200 an hour. And then I did a price increase to $250 and then a price increase to $290. I was $290 for a while. And then it was actually when I went on mat leave. So we're talking 2023, 2024. I would take a few calls just with existing clients, but I charged $350 because I was like, I have very limited time. $350 an hour. And I've been charging that all year. And like November was my busiest month ever. So I'm not planning another coaching price increase now. Like $350 US is where I feel comfortable. But going from $290 to $350 again, it's like, oh, are people still going to want to pay that? Is that going to be, because I never offer discount. I'm just like, discounts, not my thing, It's my time is my time. Courses, maybe, but yeah, but it's, it's all about balancing supply and demand as well. Like if I have a calendar filling up a month in advance, which I was at $290, I need to increase the price to free up room for those willing to pay. And, I've had the occasional person try to make me feel bad about it. But really it's like, no, I don't need to feel bad. You can't afford it. And that's A-okay. You do not have to. You know what? I publish free content every single day. I have a podcast. I have a new, like, I am putting plenty of free help out there. But if you want my brain on your business, it costs money because there's only so much time to go around.
This is how I know we're on the same page, because that is exactly what I was about to ask you about was,
okay.
How do you feel about free?
How do I feel about free? Okay, I have a lot of thoughts about free, but what it comes down to is this: give it all away for free. All your knowledge. My mentality is give all your knowledge away for free. Because people come hire you because they don't want to do it themselves. So, you know, I've had a lot of friends, especially friends who have other marketing specialties besides Google Ads, and they'll see how much I share on social media. They're like, Jyll, aren't you worried like people won't buy your courses or they won't buy your coaching for giving away? I'm like, no, the information is what establishes me as the expert. And I feel comfortable giving away everything I know for free. But if you want it customized for you, then that's what's going to cost money. And it's interesting because I'm on the flip side of that. Like when I launched my podcast, I grabbed a lead magnet from this podcast expert named Kevin Schmidlin, and he shared like 12 steps to starting a podcast. And I followed every single free thing, and I did it, and I executed and never hired him. But I know I'm the anomaly. I'm sure he did great business from that, as he should, because he shared great information. And same more recently, there's this email marketing expert, Jeff Felton. I had seen him on Threads. He had a free thing. I did the free thing, completely overhauled the way I use email in my business. It's been amazing. I have not hired him. Maybe I still will one day. I will implement it, but I'm the anomaly. Most people consume the free information, know it's great information, and then know I can't do this alone. And then depending on the price point, they join my course or they join my coaching call, or they refer me to people. I get so many coaching clients who will say, oh, my friend has subscribed to your newsletter for 2 years. We were just talking and she said I had to reach out to you about Google Ads. So say all that to say, my mentality is give all the information away for free. Information wants to be free. It will come back to you and then some if it's good information. But I know that can be a controversial take. I'm curious how you feel about this, Tom. Free and free versus paid.
It's such an interesting topic. One thing you said there I want to pick up on, which is it reminds me of, I'm recording like a secret project at the moment, and I recorded a module yesterday around some just wins I've had over the years from referrals, like you said. And one of them was like recently I working with a client, done an audit and probably going to move into managing their account in the new year. And they're like a pretty big client. So to give you an idea, it's like 500K plus US per month spend. And that was from LinkedIn and from what I would say a lurker. So someone who never liked my post, never commented on my post. I had no idea they even exist. And it was actually like a one person away kind of referral. She came to me and said, hey, I've heard you're the guy from all these people. Don't know who the people told her. I'm not really sure, right? And then I checked with a few people and they said, hey, yeah, no, I know who she is, blah, blah, blah. You know, I've said you're great. And that was just so cool, like something that I wasn't involved in at all. And then that came to me and she said, hey, I have this friend who has this friend who's doing this company and they really need the best Google Ads person. And I think it's going to be a really good fit. Let me introduce you, blah, blah, blah. That is probably like the most insane part of like personal brand, I would say, is just those referrals that just come out of nowhere. You know, there's so many things you can do there, like planting the seeds, like building your personal brand, putting out content. But I think this is just a reminder to everyone that's like maybe waking up having a bad day, which we all do, and thinking like, oh, my content's rubbish and like I'm not getting anything out of it. No one's messaged me today. Like I definitely have days like that. We all do, right? I think you've just got to keep in mind that these things take 3, 6, 12 months, right? And then they'll come back to you because they've seen a post of yours from a while ago, right? So I just wanted to get that reminder out of the way for anyone listening.
It's great. And the consistency part is key. You know, I remember when launching my podcast, I read this stat, something like, 70% of podcasts never publish more than 3 episodes and like 90% never publish more than 10. Because when you publish your first few podcast episodes, you feel like you're talking into the ether, And it wasn't until I had been 5 months into my podcast was the first time that a coaching client said to me, I found you through your podcast. And that same week, 2 more people said, I found you through your podcast. And it was the first time I had people who weren't my friends, or my existing course members, like brand new people to me, saying that the discovery happened through the podcast. It was 5 months in, and it's a weekly podcast. So I was a lot of episodes in at that point. Most people would have given up if after a month, oh, well, I haven't gotten a client yet. Well, it's not how it works. And, those episodes, podcast episodes, live for so long that I'll get people coming to me now who are listening to an episode from ages ago. Or the blog is another example of this. So I started my blog in July, about 6 months ago. It's repurposed podcast episode transcripts. I take the transcript, turn them into blog posts. And even though I'm repurposing, it still has been a big time investment. I've probably spent 30, 40 hours on that blog over the last 6 months. And it wasn't until 3 weeks ago that I got my first cold sale of someone who landed on a blog post. Like, that's how they came in from organic search. They were not searching for Jyll. They were searching for whatever max conversions versus manual CPC, read the blog post, bought the course. And it's only $49, initially, but it's just so exciting to see, like, okay, 4.5 months till first piece of revenue. And this is just the beginning. Imagine where this is all going to go from here. So whatever aspect of building your brand, posting that video, writing that LinkedIn post, launching that, whatever it may be, the results will not be immediate the way we're sort of used to sometime with PPC. It really does take time. And I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make with brand building is they give up too soon. They'll post every day on LinkedIn for a month, and then they're like, well, I didn't get clients, and they stop. It's like, well, no, you just, you ghosted everyone.
Right. I mean, I owe so much of my especially early career and early learnings to the Paid Search podcast. I don't know if you came across that, by Jason Rothman and Chris Schaefer.
I don't listen to other search podcasts because I don't want to inadvertently, but I know they exist, and I know that one's been around for ages, which is hugely commendable.
But literally, I mean, I've never spoken to them. I hope to one day for sure. I think they've either stopped it or like slowed down with the podcast, but they did it for so many years. And there was literally, I think I used to listen to it on the way to work and on the way back, and I'd literally listen to 1 or 2 episodes per day. So I got through, I think, 100 and something episodes, right?
Wow.
In a couple of years, especially my early career. And that was like the only podcast that was super technical. And that's probably what I would imagine. I don't know their listening numbers, but I would imagine that it's quite niche what they were doing. So it would have been really difficult to probably keep on going. So it's super cool that they did, right? I don't imagine they had that many listeners because it was so niche and so technical, but that's what I really wanted. That's why I struggled with other podcasts at the time. This was a good couple of years ago. There was no technical going into depth, podcasts, and they would literally just talk about like all these really technical things, and they wouldn't be afraid to like also be wrong or make assumptions or say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, right? Whereas a lot of people public facing are quite scared to do that, right? Because then it maybe looks bad for like further down the line or something. So it was really cool to just hear like them being real and authentic. And I said, hey, if I'm ever going to do a podcast, yeah, exactly. If I'm ever going to do a podcast, it's going to be, something like that.
You should do one, Tom. You should do one.
Yeah, I mean,
I will say that don't just, I'm just going to launch one. Like, there's some planning involved, sure. I have found it works really well for me, but as with any new project, right, you have to have the time and the commitment to see it through. But I do like, I grew up, so to speak, on TikTok videos and 60-second videos, and that was the core of my business for at least 2 years until I started migrating more into LinkedIn and written stuff. And it's a whole different ball game, the 60-second quick Google Ads tip versus the sort of 12 to 15-minute podcast episode getting more in depth versus what I've started doing more of now, like a live Google Ads account audit that's an hour. And that for me is like a really vulnerable place, because it's like, I didn't pre-check anything. I'm cold in this Google Ads account, and we are figuring this ish out together in real time. And I did 4, and it was so much fun, but I was a little scared going into each one, just thinking like, what if I don't find anything to say, or, but it was great. It was great. And I find that those moments of vulnerability, people really appreciate and relate to. Like, I'm in my end of year content reflecting, looking back at some of my top LinkedIn posts of the year. And one of my top 3 posts is where I talked about how I fired a client because I didn't think I could help them anymore. It was not, the second most popular was all about performance max, whatever, but it's not always those posts. The humanity and vulnerability, I think, is so important in like attracting the kind of people I want. But also, if someone's repelled by that from me, well, then good. They're not probably the right client for me anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a big trend going into 2025, right? Is I wonder if the highly produced, very perfect content is sort of done, sort of out the window. I feel like the trend is very much moving towards this sort of, which I love, by the way, is like vlog style POV. Hey, this is a day of my life, but not produced. This is very much like stuff happens. I'm trying not to swear.
Thank you.
Stuff happens every day, good and bad. And yeah, you can just share that basically. And yeah, being like, I watch a guy on TikTok who, and by the way, I've really struggled with TikTok. Like I'm still trying to make some videos for it because I really struggle with, I think, talking fast, like getting it into that really short period. Like I like to explain things properly. I think one of the most difficult things with Google Ads content that I want to touch on was that there is no absolutes. And that's why I say I would love to work in SEO if I started again, because with SEO, you can say, this is right, this is wrong. This is the way to do things. This is not the way to do things typically, right? You can talk in absolutes. With Google Ads, I think it's so difficult to create content sometimes because you write something and then you say, yeah, but it might not be right for this situation or it might not be right for that, right? So it's really difficult to talk in absolutes. How do you approach that?
I don't know SEO well, but I've always thought that you can't do that with SEO because you don't know. Like Google doesn't actually tell you how to rank. People figure stuff out and try stuff, but you don't really know. Whereas with Google Ads, it actually is very clear how the platform works. So it's interesting. I've viewed that the other way around. But I found, and again, like, I don't think what I'm saying would work to grow on TikTok today. I grew on TikTok in 2021 and 2022. So must acknowledge that's when I got my 60,000 followers and I've been flat for the last year, which is fine. But, I found when I was growing, it was at a time when educational and informational content was really people were looking for. It was during COVID, so lots of people looking to start a business and that kind of thing. And so because of that, this quick hit content, like I would say in a TikTok video, how much you need to spend on Google Ads? At least $20 a day for at least a month.
Yeah.
That was it,
right.
Where does that come from? Sure, there's a whole bunch of context behind it, but they don't want content. Or like, okay, when you're doing your keywords, put quotation marks around them. Just trust me, it's how you're going to want to start, which was my advice at the time. What bid strategy do you need to use? Put it on maximize conversions. It's the way to go 99% of the time. So like I would say absolutes. Of course, if people comment, whatever, but that was what I found worked then. It's all about the target audience. Like my target audience on TikTok, Instagram is very much a small business owner, a new business owner, whereas my target audience on LinkedIn is very much fellow industry practitioners, peers, people aspiring to be peers, people who work in Google Ads every day. So my content between the two is very different and they both feed my business in very different ways. So this is kind of changing the topic a bit, but that's how I've thought about like expanding into more platforms, is it's allowed me to open up many different avenues of my business. And that's why I have, my signature course inside Google Ads where I can serve business owners and I can serve, people who work at agencies because I really understand them from the way they've interacted with my content in different places. But it's tricky. It's tricky too. I don't know. Do you feel like you have one target audience that you speak to, or do you feel like it kind of changes a bit depending where you are?
So I'm trying to think of the niche that I saw the other day, which I thought, hey, I would love to be in that niche. I think it was just health and fitness, to be honest, which I guess there are loads of sub niches, but generally you're just going to speak to people who want to get more fit, right? So there's not really that definition of like business owners and then speaking to other PPCs. And I think I definitely struggle with it. And I'm putting together a few things that I think will be really helpful for other PPCs to, write content for their ideal clients rather than other PPCs. It's one of the biggest mistakes I see, and something that I literally get DMs about every day is, hey, Tom, like I'm writing content, I'm doing the giveaway posts, which is a big trend, but I'm only getting other PPCs replying, right? So, and it's not really like I'm just, going around in circles, not really doing anything. So that's a big mistake that people make. And I definitely am very like cognizant of that. when I'm making content, especially on TikTok, because I don't want to appeal to business owners. That's not my target audience at all. My target audience is either PPC specialists, other Google Ads experts who I'm mostly making content for, and freelance wise, it's generally the same actually, right? So my content can be a little bit more technical, or it can be a little bit more sort of about freelancing and about PPC freelancing. But again, it's like trying to match the technical ability of the person that's reading your content. I think that's always really tough in PPC, right? Because there's so many levels to it, right? I think that's different to other industries.
Yeah, I think you're right. And what you're saying, it reminds me of what I say about writing ad copy, especially in B2B. Like, you want your creative to appeal to your target audience and not appeal to your not target audience. So like for you, because you're not looking to reach business owners, you want them to see your video and scroll away because it's not for them, right? And so because of that, the reach will be smaller, but the engagement will be so much deeper. On LinkedIn, it's interesting. I've had quite a few friends say this to me as well. Like, oh, I put out content, but everyone commenting is other people in PPC, and it comes back to something you said earlier, Tom, that like the clients aren't the ones who comment. They're the ones who are watching. So the fact that other people in the industry are the only ones commenting, engaging, like I'm actually not so concerned about that, at least in the short term, because that then brings your post to all the people following them as well. And the person who's going to be that 5-figure, 6-figure client is not necessarily the one who's commenting, but they're seeing. And if they see your name again and again in their feed, and they see other people they follow also engaging with your content, that's not nothing. Like, look, if a year later you've still never gotten a client from LinkedIn, fair enough. But and I guess that's also how other opportunities come about. Like, I'm asked to speak at conferences, to write, for search engine land. Like, so many things have come from me being on LinkedIn and being with others in the industry that then in turn bring other customers. Like, that's how I ended up starting to write for WordStream, which they pay, lovely, but also I get so many clients who see my WordStream articles. So that's also something I advise to keep in mind, even if it's not like people in your LinkedIn DMs looking to hire you. A lot of opportunities come from being in that space as well, but it takes consistency and patience, which are two things that are hard to have.
What that just made me think about was, I'd love to ask you how you prioritize, because it sounds like you have so many things going on. You've been, sounds like, fairly consistent. I don't know how it's been behind the scenes, but it seems like being fairly consistent with a lot of these things, which is super impressive. And you touched on it a little bit earlier around money, which I feel like is not talked about enough in our industry. I think you said something like, I wouldn't say optimizing for money, but you're saying, you need to prioritize the things that make money, right? And you cut out a lot of the free things. So I'd be interested to hear how you approach that, like how you prioritize different things.
Yeah, so I put kind of rules and guidance in line for myself. So for example, although I will make exceptions, like for speaking opportunities, if attendees pay, I get paid. If attendees come for free, I come for free. So there have been a variety of times when I've been invited to speak at conferences that are like brand name and big, but they want me to travel for free and speak for free, and attendees pay 4 figures. And so I'm just like, that's not worth it to me. Not because I won't potentially get an opportunity there, but the opportunity cost of being away from my business for that long is a big thing. And that's something I actually didn't think. I went to Hero Conf this year in San Diego, which was amazing. I wasn't speaking, but I got gifted a ticket. It was great. Amazing network-wise, so many opportunities coming out of it. But the downside to it was a whole week away from my business and my kids, which also sucked, but away from my business. And it cost me a lot of money in that regard, which I do think will end up being worth it, but we don't always think about it that way. So let me see, on my wall here, I have my various revenue streams. So like the podcast I do for free. It takes me 2.5 hours beginning to end to do a podcast episode. Plan it, record it, edit it, schedule all the content, etc. 2.5 hours of my time is just under $1,000 of my time. So I'm like, is every podcast episode going to bring $1,000 in opportunity over the next year or two? I'm like, it absolutely will. I see that in the clients that come through from it. But for example, some of the free things I killed, I had this free Google Ads ebook, which was just my LinkedIn post put together in an ebook. More than 1,000 people grabbed it over 2 years, but directly attributable revenue to the ebook, 0. Right. There was a promo code in it for my courses. The only 2 people who ever used the promo code were people who were already course members and canceled and then used it, which fair enough. I don't begrudge them that. But I didn't see that bringing me anyone new who was going to hire me. It was bringing people who just wanted to download a free ebook, which power to them, but they can go to my LinkedIn for that. I don't need to maintain an ebook for that. So that's why I killed that. My
Sorry to jump
newsletter,
in
I
there.
create. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that. I think that's super interesting. What do you think the percentages of those people, those 1,000 people that downloaded it, what do you think the percentages of people who actually used it, read it, used it?
Very low.
Right?
I see that even with the paid course. And this is the thing no course creator will say out loud. So I'll say it out loud now. People buy the course and at least half never touch it again. I've done that. I have bought courses and I'm all excited on day one and never touch it again. And I don't begrudge them when they cancel. Anytime someone cancels, I go and look. And if I see they bought the course 3 months ago and never watched a lesson, okay, it's not me. I offer great content. I'm confident in the value. So are they. It's why they bought. But life happens. Things happen. That's that. So yeah, that, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier. Everyone wants to, I don't want to say everyone wants to do what we do. That's not true. But like everyone wants the transformation. They want to learn the new thing. They want to gain the new skill. And they want to buy the thing that's going to help them do that. But the thing helps them do that. It doesn't do it for them. You still need to actually take the action. And of all the things, like, I do think that's why I've been successful. Like, yes, I have the Google Ads expertise. I'm not a charlatan, but like, I am very fortunate that the way my brain works and the way I work is like, I can have an idea and sit down and focus on it for 3 hours and bring it to execution and do it. And I know that that's really hard for a lot of people. Yeah. So that's how I think about that. I don't know if you're willing to share, like, have you seen, something similar, having a membership as well, like the people who are active and really use it versus the people who don't?
Yeah, we can come back to that because I just thought of a post I saw of yours that I wanted to talk about. And that's what sparked my idea about asking you about free and how you feel about free.
Yeah.
So talking about, people who buy courses, don't use them, or download free things, don't use them.
Yeah.
I always say, and I get asked this a lot by the PPCs, around free audits and free proposals. And I saw your post and I think it was really spot on. And I think it was a really good conversation, honest, open conversation.
I don't do free discovery calls. Is that the one?
Right.
Yeah,
right,
I don't do free discovery calls.
So I'm the same. I'm very much against free work. I'm very much against free, calls, free audits, which is kind of the industry standard, right? So that is, from our side, maybe a little bit polarizing, a little bit controversial, because that's what pretty much everyone does. And what I would say about the free audits, charging for something is the biggest pre-qualification you can do, right? But people don't realize that. And people will naturally think of all these different overcomplicated things. And I get it all the time. I was just speaking to another PPC about it a few days ago, and they were asking me, hey, look at my LinkedIn. What do you think? What do you think of the landing page? What do you think of the form I've built? I said, hey, you getting any leads? They were like, not really. And I was like, so why have you built a really complicated form with all this stuff for a free call? And they were like, oh, pre-qualification. I said, just charge.
Just charge.
And they said, oh, well, what if people, I said, okay, so take it off the retainer, right? I've seen that's a really good way to do it as well. If you're worried about people not being able to afford it, firstly, you don't want them. They're not your target audience. They're not the right clients for you. And secondly, if it is a cost concern, then you can say, hey, it's more of a deposit. You pay £100 or you pay something symbolic, which is a pre-qualification, some amount of money to make sure that the people are serious and, they're actually serious about their ads. And, anyone spending any amount of Google on Google ads, especially if it's more than a couple of thousand per month, they should be okay with spending $100, for example, to have, a quick call or an audit with somebody. I think that's a big red flag when people aren't willing to spend that. And then, just to finish, what I see work quite well, I see accountants do this actually, where they say, hey, it's because they get loads of people wasting their time, right? Questions, and then they never hire them, right? So what a lot of accountants do, and shout out to Ellis, who I saw do this, is it's like $75, $100 for the call. But then if you hire them after, then it comes off the first month's retainer. So it's more of like a deposit.
Yeah, I actually found my accountant on TikTok, funnily enough. But I even saw someone, they charged $1 for the discovery call.
Right.
$1, right?
Yep.
Put in your info. But it comes down to business models. So with the free audit, if you're an agency trying to win business, then I get how offering a free audit helps you do that. My audit's not free because I'm not trying to win your business. I'm offering I will audit for you. And so with
Yeah.
discovery calls, I had some people comment on that post like, well, if you do ads management, someone's not just going to hire you cold. They like, fair enough. Yeah. But like for my business, if you want to hire me for coaching, then my coaching and consultation, I'm not giving it away in a discovery, like just hire me. And I tell people, I have so much free content out there. You could spend 100 hours with me before you actually hop on a call with me. Like that'll tell you if, you want to hire me or not. And I rarely now get people hopping on a call with me who've never seen my content, but it happened yesterday and it was so weird. They had Googled me and found me through Google organic search and booked the call. And they weren't warm to me yet, even though they became a client. So I had to like win them over during the call, which I did. Thank you very much. But it was really hard. I didn't realize how much of a privilege it actually is to my business as well, that when people come to me, they're often very excited to meet me because they've been engaged in my content for so long. So yeah, that client yesterday made me work for it, but they booked a second call for tomorrow. So that's how I know it went well.
I always find that really jarring, to be honest, and something that just takes me by surprise is when people jump on a call and they sort of treat you like a bit of a celebrity. Like it's always a little bit strange, I'm not used to that at all. I've had a few calls like that where they're just super, super excited and they say like, hey, and I get it because they probably feel like they sort of know me and they say, hey, I feel like I know you already because they've consumed my content for like a year or 2 years, right? But they're super excited to meet me and it is cool. But yeah, like I don't really see myself as any sort of celebrity. So sometimes it is a little bit, it takes you off guard, right?
I mean, it's how I felt, Amalia Fowler, for example, is someone who's one of my closest friends now. But before that, like I saw her on Twitter every day and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so cool and she's so smart. And I would reply to her sometimes, when she replied back, and we did this little live stream together. And then we've actually become really close friends now, which is wonderful. But like, I remember that feeling where to me, Amalia Fowler was like the ultimate celebrity in our industry. I mean, she still is. She's wonderful. And I feel so fortunate to call her one of my close friends now. And so that's also been exciting. Like, even though I worked at Google and I've been in this industry a long time, the PPC community, PPC chat and like that, I still feel very new to, because I just didn't know it existed for so many years. And so it's so cool to have like, Julie Vicini and Sarah Steeman, all these names, and Nava Hopkins, who like, we have a WhatsApp chat, and it's just so cool to me because like, to me, they're celebrities. And so, yeah, when it turns around and someone's like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. I'm like, what do you mean? It's you listen to my podcast every week. Let me shake your hand, Yeah,
I mean, for me, like, to be completely honest, that I always put a really big pressure on myself with that though. I think that's the other side to it, right? Like it's really nice and it's great to be recognized, but I always put a really high expectation and pressure on myself because I realize that I'm the person that I used to look up to, right? I've become that person now. And I have I see it as a duty to the people up and coming, anyone that's building their brand on LinkedIn, any PPC, anyone that's venturing into freelancing, anyone that's, starting out their PPC career, to do right by them, right? And give them great advice and help them out as much as I can. So yeah, do you ever feel like that pressure or not really?
I do. And it's interesting to hear you say that because it's one of the reasons I first DM'd you. And I was like, hey, do you want to just hop on a chat? Because, the internet can be a very toxic place, especially as a woman. And there's a lot of people out there who are not positive. And so something that struck me about you before I met you and hopped on a call with you is that I could see that positivity and that duty you took seriously. Like I could tell that about you in your own content, but also the way I was seeing you engage with other people's content. And so that was something that made me say before I met you, Tom, I was like, okay, I want to meet Tom. Like I can tell he's good people and he's someone I want to have in the network. And like candidly, usually when I reach out to people, I'm often reaching out to other women, because being a woman in PPC, whole other level of challenges. That's a conversation for another day. And so when I see someone like you, who is not a woman, but is someone very positive and encouraging and spreading that positivity and lifting other people up in the industry, it's rare, first of all. But because it's rare, that's also why I was like, okay, I definitely want to meet him. So thank you for what you do. Because like I recognize it. And I know that a lot of other men and women in the industry recognize it as well.
Wow. I mean, that's super nice. Like that's probably made my week, my month. Like that's really, really nice. I really appreciate that. The first thing that comes to my mind when you said toxic was competition, right? And I think I completely I'm on the same page as you there, where I don't view anyone as competition in the industry. And I think that is quite common in not just PPC, but loads of industries where people see each other as competition. Like, you know, we have some similar products on some similar offerings, right? That might be for the same similar sort of people. But I've always viewed it, and even, you know, clients wise as well, I've always viewed it as there's enough clients to go around. There's enough PPCs to go around, you know, like I don't really think anyone's competing with anyone. So yeah, I just think that's a bit of kind of a waste of time when people try and, you know, do that, when they try and make comparisons, or they try and say, hey, you know, as you said, like being unnecessarily toxic or, you know, negative.
Right. It's why this probably isn't a good thing to admit publicly. I hate the list. I hate the most influential PPC expert list. I hate how much energy gets spent on the list. I hate everyone trying to I haven't posted about it. I haven't asked people to vote for me. I'm not trying to be ungrateful to be nominated to this thing, but like I get why it does so well and why people love it. But just me personally, I really don't like that, because, you know, I guess it adds value for all of us that we can now say we're the most influential PPC experts. Of course, yeah, I say that, but it like really grinds my gears every time I see people post it, because I'm just like, really, this is what we're all focusing on here? Like, come on, you know? And I think it breeds that competition. What's your rank and what's your number and how many followers do you have? And like, I agree, you know, when I message you, like, I didn't know if you'd want to respond to me, because we both offer Google Ads memberships and we both are LinkedIn content creators. And, you know, I've seen before, like my course members commenting on your posts and stuff, but it's like, yeah, why wouldn't someone be a member of both of ours? Why wouldn't we talk and share what's working and what we've learned? And I'm so glad we've been able to do that when we spoke earlier this week and then speaking here today, because there is so much opportunity out there and so much room for all of us to succeed. And so I am a firm believer. I mean, it's why I founded PPC Zone, right? That like the more we share and support and lift each other up, the better we will all do.
Yeah. So to balance out the top 100,
yeah,
I totally see where you're coming from. But to balance out, I think two things come to mind. One is that I obviously have only been on it for 1-2 years now, so I can't really talk about how it used to be, but I've heard some things that people didn't really like. And I think a lot of that has been massively improved, right? Like I know there's some rules now around, there's a better weighting, it's a lot fairer, you know, there's a lot more opportunities for up and coming people to come on, because I think what happened before, and this happens in so many industries, is it's the same people every single year. And I personally saw that years ago and thought, hey, I'm never going to get on that. So it is super cool for me to, again, like sort of like you, like I never really asked, never really wanted. I don't know who put me on it originally. I literally have no idea. It was super cool, a big surprise to be on it. And yeah, it does totally promote you to be like, oh, I want to move up. You know, I want to get to the top, right? Of course, it's just natural. But yeah, I think the weighting's got a lot better. I think there's some sort of rules, if I'm not mistaken, around how many years you can be on it, or, you know, what position you can be on and stuff like this, which I think makes it a lot. I'm not knocking
the people who run it or the way it's run. Yeah. Like I see as well the effort. I'm just saying the concept of the list in general, like I don't like it. I'll participate in it. Sure, I'll read the benefit, but like I don't think it's productive for us. Yeah. Right. There, I'll just let that unpopular opinion sit.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I've heard a lot of opinions about the list. And I think I shouldn't say the list, because there's so many different lists, right? There's like top 50, top 100. There's all these different ones. I can only speak for PPC Survey because that's the only one I'm on, and that's the only one I've had like interactions with them. And yeah, I think they've improved it a lot. And I think you're never going to make it perfect, right? You're never going to make it something which everyone is happy with, but it's always going to exist. So I think if you can try and improve it and try and make it fairer, then that's sort of the best you can do. I mean, the second thing I would say is like the benefit I've had from the list is a lot of people, as you said, use it as like a vanity metric, right? Like it's nice to say, hey, I'm on the top 100 list, of course. Doesn't mean too much as far as like, you know, what does it get you, right? Intangible stuff. For me, what it's got me is networking, actually, which has been absolutely changed my life completely, because, you know, I'm like pretty young as well. Like I've been in PPC 9 years now, coming on a decade, but that's just because I started when I was like 18. So like I'm only 27 now. So I don't know a lot of the sort of older people in the industry, say, that have been in the industry a lot longer, right? Like I have, I'm talking about the people on the list. all the people on the list that have been in the industry like 20 years, right? Like I have no connection to them whatsoever, right? I didn't come up in their groups, their circles. So for me, like as a newcomer, it's cool because as far as networking and being able to talk to those people and yeah, like that's priceless. I always say that's the biggest thing I got out of my personal brand. You know, you can talk about revenue, you can talk about, you know, friends that I've met, which I'm very fortunate to have. But I think the most priceless thing that people maybe don't talk about enough is the network you'll get from building your personal brand. As you said, like the opportunities of you messaging me and us doing this, right? Like that probably wouldn't come about, right? If I didn't spend all that time and effort like building my personal brand, right? So
the pink British guy, that was the hot pink. That's what always stood out to me, Tom.
I love that. Yeah, I try to, because everyone does blue. I feel like everyone does blue. Like sorry. I was thinking of my dad when I said blue, because especially like his generation, everyone was blue.
I'm a millennial here, so watch yourself.
So I just thought something that will stand out, you know, and I said, hey,
it does.
I got a lot of messages about the pink originally because I just kind of randomly picked it. And then I got a lot of messages. And also my dad was telling me, hey, are you sure you want to pick pink? Like, that's a bit, I don't know about that. And I was like, yeah. And that's when I knew it was right, because I was like, okay, this is going to spark conversation. Let me stick with this.
Absolutely. You know, the thing you're saying about the industry, that has been the best thing for me, because like leaving Google, you know, what I didn't think about until I had left, you can tell a lot of thinking went into that decision. My friend circle in Toronto and my social life all revolved around Google as well. And so trying, you know, I still have a few close friends from there to this day, but trying to build like people I can talk to, like we're doing right here, but like I didn't have this, you know, a few years ago. And so more importantly than being like, oh, you know, it's not name dropping people. It's like talking to Amalia when I first hopped on a call with her, I was like, whoa, like we're feeling the same thing. And there's some stuff that you just can't talk about in a public venue, no matter how transparent you want to be. And talking to other people as well, who are like mothers and balancing building a business and working in this industry, and just like the experience that women have in this industry. Like you see some of us get salty on LinkedIn, but the conversations that happen in the DMs, it's just, you would not believe some of the crap that we deal with, that many people deal with for all kinds of things. And so just finding that mutual understanding and that friendship. For me, it was even before I got into the PPC community, but when I was on TikTok, there were other TikTok creators from other marketing disciplines like Instagram experts, email marketing experts and stuff. And so I would hop into the DMs and be like, can we hang out? Can we talk? Just because it's like this unique experience that people can't always understand. And so that absolutely has been the most valuable thing about building my personal brand as well, is like, I have no shame. I'll just walk up to them and be like, hey, I'm Jyll. It's nice to meet you. Hey, or messaging someone, hey, want to hop on a call and chat? Because that's the real value. And that's why, you know, I said earlier, attending HeroConf was like a huge money suck for me, not because of the price of it, but the price of being away from my business for a week. But like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. There are so many people who I've been friends with for years when I got to meet in person for the first time. And that is just priceless to me.
Yeah, it's completely different meeting people in person. I had so many cool collaborations come out of AdWorld in Bologna this year in October, which I was very lovingly invited to speak. So that was my first like public speaking gig, which was super cool. Yeah, very interesting experience. Nava, of course, guided me through the whole thing. Lovely. Yeah, like actually invited me to it originally, introduced me to the founder and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, again, like me and Nava never really spoke that much before that. We just exchanged some comments, and obviously whatever I said, whatever she said, left an impression, right? And as you said, like sort of like us, like we continue that conversation, and that turned into her introducing me to a bunch of people that was completely like life-changing for me, right? Which I can't thank her enough, really. But yeah, meeting people in person is completely different. I never thought it would be that different as far as like advancing the relationship, right? It's just completely different. And as you said, you can only talk about certain things with people that have been through it, people that are in the industry, people that are maybe on the list, right, that get all the stuff that comes with sharing your life on LinkedIn, the good and the bad, right?
I will say Nava Hawkins, if you are watching this and you do not follow Nava, you should. She is someone I'm rooting for to be #1 on the most influential list, because not only does she have the expertise, but she really is one of those people who's like the heart and soul of our industry. And I feel very fortunate to call her a close friend. She's great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah. Do you think, what do you think going into 2025 is going to be your focus, or what's top of mind for you then?
What's my focus and what's top of mind? 2024, my focus was really about like systems and processes in my business, enabling me to do more with my time through email automations, migrate to new course platform, all these things to set up for bigger success. In 2025, the book is coming out. That is a project I've been working on for 3 years. So the book will be a big part of the year. But as well, I haven't had a full year of work in a few years just because of when I had my second child. So I'm really looking forward to just like riding the wave of what I've built. Like 2025 is going to be the first year of my business where like I have the systems in place, I have the support in place, I have the revenue streams in place, I have the brand, I have the relationships. I don't need a plan for taking time away or coming back, or I can just go on all 4 cylinders and enjoy the ride, hopefully. So that's kind of the energy and intention I'm bringing into 2025 in my business. What about you, Tom?
That's super cool. Made me think about a question that we didn't quite cover off that you asked me earlier about my membership and about how people behave, like people that drop out or people that don't use it. So this is something I'm really focusing on in 2025 is how to get people to use my products, right? Someone asked me the other day, I was talking to another PPC about this, and they said, hey, is it not enough for you to just sell it? Because I feel like it's very much 2 parts, which I'm starting to understand now, right?
Yeah, which you don't think of before, right?
Exactly. You see it very much as you just sell a course, right? And the course is the same and everything's one thing. But actually, I feel like it's very much 2 separate things. Building a cool thing and then getting people to use it / communicating / selling it, right?
Yeah.
And those things actually can feel quite different as far as like 2 different projects, right? You can do a really good job on one and not so good job on the other, or the other way around. It's really hard to, put your everything into both of them, right? Like you're always going to do a better job at one or the other. Now, I always put my all into like building stuff that I thought was really cool, for like my friends, for my close community members, for example, just around problems that other PPCs had, right? But I was never really that good at the marketing stuff. Like I've admitted this before. So that's something I've, built on and tried out and experimented with different things this year, right? And that's definitely going to go into next year. But actually what I found was, as you said, that's a huge issue. I think the course completion across like everything is like, I don't know, 15%, 20%. Saw this figure the other day, something like that. I've done the same. I've bought courses. I haven't completed them, right? I think we all have. And I actually get this question a lot in my DMs from people saying, hey, I want to join your community. I'm part of 3, 4, 5 other communities. I think that will be really surprising to a lot of people to hear, because a lot of people come with the assumption of, hey, like, people inside your community must only be part of your community. Again, going back to the competition thing, no. To be completely honest, most people in my community are part of at least 2 or 3 other communities in PPC, sometimes even 4 or 5, right? They sign up for quite a lot of them, a lot of the time. And yeah, people ask me a lot, hey, like I'm part of these communities, I'm thinking about joining yours. A lot of the time, I will basically say, hey, don't join my community. Use what you have. Right? Are you not like, because I'll say, what are your challenges? What are you looking for? And they'll sort of talk about things which they can already solve with the communities they're in, or the courses they've bought, or the stuff that they've already spent money on. Right. So I'm really big on saying, hey, like, just stick with what you've got and actually use it first, because what's going to happen is you're going to come in my community, which is great for me, but then actually you're not going to get much out of it. So then I feel like it's not worth it for anybody, right? Like I want it to be a win-win situation.
Yes.
So yeah, the completion thing is something I've thought about a lot, and something I've been diving into a lot with AI as well, is working with like ChatGPT to understand. I was actually just doing like the advanced voice search, which I'm finding really cool. It's really warm as well now. Like it literally sounds like a human. And saying, hey, like how do people learn? Like whether it's visual, whether it's whiteboarding stuff out, like I'm a big fan of that. talking, videos, audio, like how do people learn? Everyone's different, right? So it's really trying to put stuff in, whether it's like a mind map, a decision tree, a video, like how do you communicate, the knowledge? How do you put it into like a template or a framework? Like what do people want to use? And that's what I'm really trying to work on, is exactly nailing that. It's not going to be for everyone, of course, right? Like you can't get everyone, but nailing that for as many PPCs as possible, so that they can use something. I mean, what I found as well with that sort of stuff is keeping it simple is really key. One of the courses that I bought was just some LinkedIn post templates, and I bought them a couple of years ago, and I literally used them every single day so much for the first year or so. And they were literally like, it was just a Google Sheets with templates in it, very basic, but again, like not overcomplicating it. So that's sort of the route I've gone down as well with my courses, where it's not high production. It's not, spending all the time on making it look fancy. It's actually just trying to get across, communicate the information and make it digestible as well. I think that's one of the biggest issues with our industry, is like people overcomplicating things and people talking about all this advanced stuff. I get so many PPCs, frankly, that are quite like overwhelmed coming to me all the time, saying, hey, like I'm overwhelmed with all this, advanced bidding strategies or advanced like conversion tracking. And I'm like, hey, like we haven't even done the first 5 steps, right? Like let's simplify, let's go back to the beginning, right? So yeah, I think trying to work out how to make things digestible is definitely one of my main focuses.
Yeah, well, we'll have to connect again in a few months and see how that's going for both of us. Something I just started, which again, like, why didn't I do this sooner in my course almost 3 years in, is an onboarding sequence. Like people would join my course and then just like, that was it. Whereas now they join my course and they get a welcome email that's like, welcome, make sure you watch this first to find out how to join the monthly meet. If you reply to this email, tell me more about yourself and I can point you in the direction of where to start. And I would say now maybe like a third of people who receive that do reply, and then me replies right away. And it's been so helpful, not just for combating churn, but just like making sure they can get value out of it, because like one person said like they work with a nonprofit and they've never used Google Ads before. Well, okay, here's like the 5 lessons you need to start with and what to do next. Whereas someone else who's saying like, I've been running ads and I have a problem with this and that. Okay, you go right here. So that's like one little thing that I'm like, duh. But again, we're Google Ads experts. We're learning this all stuff as we go, So anyway, I look forward to connecting again and seeing what we both learn about that this year.
Yeah, for sure. I think churn is an interesting one. And that's something I've heard a lot about, is that churn is generally overwhelm of people joining something and not knowing where to start. So as you said, onboarding is like totally key to that. But yeah, I'm super excited to see where we both get to support each other's content.
Yes.
And do some more collaborations, do some more fun chats like this. I'll be interested to see as well if people like this sort of format, this sort of honest, authentic format, or if they prefer the more
the numbers won't lie. So if you
Grammy
like
stuff
and you're still here, drop one of those thumbs up, No, it was an absolute pleasure, Tom. Again, Tom is a top PPC freelancer, founder of PPC Profit Club, which you can join by checking him out on LinkedIn. Links to everything there. I'm Jyll Saskin, a Google Ads coach and the founder of the Inside Google Ads course podcast. You can follow me on LinkedIn and find links to all of that stuff there. Tom, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm sure I'll see you in a few minutes in my LinkedIn feed.